Hello and welcome to Woken Spurred, Greenbelt, Wild at Home. It is a pleasure to be here to have you. My name is Harry Baker. I have gone to Greenbelt every year of my life bar one. And the last few years I've had the honour of hosting Woken Spurred, where I get to bring some of my favourite poets in front of my favourite people, which is you, the Greenbelt audience. And the festival may not be happening in a physical sense in August this year, but we're very much bringing it to you. So thank you for being here. The first guest for this could only be one man. It is Toby Campion, a Greenbelt favourite, possibly the most regular guest, rivaled closely by Aaron Bolins. But I'm going to bring a couple of my poems to you first, a couple of Greenbelt faves of mine, and then pass it over to Toby. I hope you enjoy this. I've got in the Greenbelt spirit. I've got my Greenbelt mug, wearing my Greenbelt t-shirt. I've got a Greenbelt tea towel, but it's so dirty, Grace said it'd be an embarrassment to show on camera. So I'll maybe wipe my brow with that later. But I'm going to start off with a poem I wrote and performed at Greenbelt possibly 10 years ago. And I feel like it fits the theme because it is based on the book Where the Wild Things Are. And it was one of my favorite books growing up. And when I was at university, the author, Maurice Sendak, died. And so as a sort of reference to that, I looked him up and his other work, and I wrote this poem because in Where the Wild Things Are, Max is a naughty boy who gets sent to bed without any supper, and then he runs away and goes on a wild rumpus. And I think now more than ever, the idea of just running and screaming and being a wild thing feels very appealing. So I'm going to do this poem, even though it requires the most interaction of anything I've ever written, and that may feel difficult. But if you at home would like to join in, that would feel good for me to be indulged. So when I say, let me hear you wild things, I want you to howl, to shout, to unleash your inner beast out the window or to whoever you are isolated with, and we can have our own rumpus through the internet. We live in a world where being childish is frowned upon. And most people are at their wildest when the shower's on and no one's watching. Yet still I power on. Sometimes I like to run around the house with no trousers on and go mad. Sometimes I wish I was a nomad and I could travel unknown lands with no plans and hold hands with anyone who needs it. Maybe pretend I am a king to anybody who'll believe it. So let me hear you wild things. Oh, let me hear you wild things. I want to hear your inner child sing because life is an emotional pick and mix. It's a balancing act trying to cope with all the different bits, the angst-ridden bits, the wish they could stay hidden bits, the self-doubt that hangs about no matter how you try to get rid of it, because sometimes people can be unkind. But all it takes to break away the rain is the sunshine, and I've sat through hurricanes, wishing that the sun would stay, that I could run away to a place where they have fun all day, somewhere I could run all day. So let me hear you wild things. I want to hear your inner child sing. So gnash those terrible teeth and show those terrible claws and roll those terrible eyes and roar those terrible roars. I said, gnash those terrible teeth and show those terrible claws and roll those terrible eyes and roar those terrible roars. This is for anyone who's ever been kicked out of class because that's where the wild things are. This is for anyone who's ever gone a little bit far because that's where the wild things are. For anyone who's had an idea but didn't know where to start. Or who's gone through with something even though it was hard, or who's been brave enough to get hurt and get scarred because that's where the wild things are. So one last time, in your own homes, wherever you may be, let me hear you wild things. Oh! Thank you very much. In a time of performing through the internet, live applause has been substituted by clapping emojis or just a meaningful silence. So I hope you enjoyed that. The next poem I would like to do is very new, and it is a poem for Grace, who is my wife. We met at Greenbelt. We were both about to go to Bristol University, and our parents are both trustees for Greenbelt and told each other that they had a child about to go to Bristol, and what better head start on a friendship than knowing that you're a Greenbelter. And then a few years later, of will they, won't they, after a pint of Crazy Goat, we summoned up the courage to tell each other how we felt. And we're now living together, isolated together. And it's only taken me 7 years to actually write her a love poem. So I feel like this is the time to share that. And it's simply called Dust. And it goes like this. It's not the flowers, it's the weeding in the mud for you. It's not the champagne, it's the cuppa in that favourite mug you use. It's not the chocolate, okay, yes it is, but not just one or two. It is becoming Bruce Bogtrotter and Augustus Gloop. It's voting frozen pizza over fancy grub with you, because some nights nothing can beat a slice of comfort food. It's knowing anything I eat will include some for you, because you're not hungry but might just have a couple spoons. It's not the dreaming, it's the waking up with you. I want to be here long enough to gather dust with you. We both agreed even romantic baths need bubbles too, but now I see maybe the snorkel was too much for you. And yes, the submarine rubber duck came out a touch too soon, and yet the fundamental truth is I have fun with you. It's watching crappy films because that's what you want to do. Then on the nights you're gone, finding I want to watch them too. It's knowing if it came to it and I had option to, I would not change a thing about what I have got with you. It's not the dreaming, it's the waking up with you. I want to be here long enough to gather dust with you. For us, love isn't in the air, that is just where we found it. All this is built upon what we have done to ground it. It's not the spark when we first met, it is the lifetime that surrounds it. It's by small amounts that mounds amount to mountains. I need not justify, adjust, or fear I'm judged by you. Among the glorious consistency of loving you. My heart's not skipped a beat, it just constantly thuds for you. Such is the everyday magnificence of loving you. It's not something we fell into so much as stumbled through. It's the spectacular normality of loving you. It's not the dreaming, it's the waking up with you. I want to be here long enough to gather dust. Thank you very much. I'll just do one more before I bring on our special guest. This is a poem I have written for this time. I feel very lucky to be stuck in a house with someone that I enjoy the company of. But there are many people who I also like who I am not in the same place as. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing them after this, however long that takes. And one thing that's kept me going in times of lowness is thinking about the hugs that I will give people that I love. And so this is simply called When This Is Over. And it's thinking about that. When this is over, I will hold you closer than you've ever known. When you see me, you can squeeze me till you feel my very bones. How I long to let you know that I won't want to let you go. There will be so much left to say, yet still some things are better shown. I will wrap my arms around you for the seconds we have lost. Our words will find a way to wait as we locate the weight of us. Though we are changed, we'll find a sense of same about the way we touch. Though it is strange, we'll embrace how long it takes us to adjust. The world of everything we knew is somewhere we cannot return. The world of everything that's new is one we'll build from what we've learned. We never dream ashes could rise again until we'd seen them burn. And the next time I'm stood in front of you, we'll feel like it's been earned. Because when the start has given way, or then so many ends can enter. When the heart is given space, it will forever tend to tender. These affections kept at bay can once again descend to center. Something will have come to yearn as hummingbirds connect to nectar. For all the overwhelming moments where I felt like giving up, there is no point where I was worried we'd forgotten how to love. And when the future's all we've got, well, then that's got to be enough. All that I know is when I'm low that I have wanted to be hugged. And if you'd rather have a handshake, that is absolutely fine. Even a way for me is saying, I am glad that you're alive. Whichever form it takes, when this has passed and we've started again, I will no longer take for granted any chances to connect. Thank you very much. So, speaking of chances to connect, now is our chance to connect with the one and only Toby Campion, who will hopefully magically join me on screen now via the wonderful technology that we have. Yes. Hello, hey. Toby.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I enjoyed the way this is set up. I enjoyed just sort of seeing your face during that and just multiplying it by however many people I want in an audience. But my dream gig would be a room full of your face many times. So this is as close as we can get. Before this went live, we were saying how much Greenbelt is a lovely festival to perform at. And I think just for context, I have performed once at Glastonbury, which when I told people is the thing a lot of my friends are most impressive about me having done, because it sounds very good. But the poetry tent is in the furthest corner of the furthest field, and I was on at the same time as Lionel Richie, and even I didn't want to hear my own poems at that point. So I think Greenbelt feels like such a treat, because not only is there a wonderful audience, I feel like for 1 hour I just get to show off some of my favorite poets, and they get to perform to 800 people, and so it feels like a win-win situation.
Yeah, I love performing at Greenbelt. I was at Glastonbury last year, and I was on at the same time as Lizzo and Janet Jackson.
Oh,
I kind of judged the people that were watching me, to be honest. People that had come to see me, I was like, yeah, Greenbelt is so good to perform at, and no one's like off their face in the crowd, just like coming in and out of the tent. Everyone's there actually listening and paying attention, and everyone's so friendly. And I forgot you mentioning Crazy Goat. I completely had forgotten about the Crazy Goat and the Jesus Arms.
That's what I miss. I don't know how we'll recreate that, but we'll find a way. Yeah. I will let you do some poems. Just before I do, you've been very helpful to me during this lockdown with some haircut advice, because people might not be able to tell, but I have recently had a haircut by Grace, who is not a trained hairdresser. But the one mistake we made was not to do with the haircut itself, I feel comfortable saying, but with the preparation around it. We didn't have the sort of official gown or gear. And so having cut the hair, a lot of it just got on our clothes. And so the natural response was to put them in the wash, but that just spread the hair around all of the other clothes. And so I'm now finding hair just on pairs of socks that were not near the incident or anything like that. But you've maintained your own style long before this.
Yes, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 years now. I've been self-barbering. I didn't tell you this over text, but when I do my hair, I don't wear anything commercial, because it just gets, even if you've got pants on, it just gets in the pants. Yeah. So you've got to do it and then go straight into the shower afterwards.
Yeah. Well, next time that will be the case.
Yes. You live, you learn. It's a mistake you make once.
Exactly. On that fabulous image, would you be up for sharing some poems with people?
Oh God, yeah. I've actually also just shaved. My head's actually just shaved today. Lingering on the image. Great. Yes, of course I will. I'll set my timer. Fantastic. Cool. Okay. Great. Hi everybody watching. Also, I didn't know if I can't see the comments, so I don't know if people are like commenting, but hey, if you're commenting, it's really nice to be here. This is actually my first gig of the lockdown. I've kind of avoided doing it, but I've been really looking forward to this. But yeah, I feel a bit nervous. It's a bit weird doing poems just to your laptop. I'm also in a darkened room. The curtains are shut because I had a weird lighting situation. But anyway, we're moving on from that. So I'm going to read a series of poems from my book, and then I'm going to do some brand new stuff, a couple of brand new poems. But we'll see how those go. I was talking to Harry earlier about how appropriate they were, so we'll see how I feel after this. But yeah, I'm going to read from this book, which is called Through Your Blood. It's available on Etsy. I'll drop the link later. And it's also available at like Watson's, but get it from me from Etsy. And it's about growing up in the Midlands. It's about growing up in the Midlands as a young gay person, a young queer person. But really, it's about growing up in a place that you feel doesn't always accept who you are for whatever reason. And mental health and grief and masculinity, and all those really light-hearted subjects. So throughout the book, there are a series of kind of snapshots of the experiences that I had growing up from childhood to adulthood. So I'm going to just read a series of those back to back. And they're all true stories, and a bit of context. I went to an all-boys kind of city-state school for 5 years in Leicester, which was also a sports college. It was formative. Okay. 1. Grandpa Terry. Grandpa Terry lets me stamp on his Stella cans before he throws them away. They crunch into metal mince pies below my light-up trainers, and I tell him to drink quicker so I can jump on more, please. My sister performs a dance routine for him in the kitchen. Say You'll Be There by the Spice Girls, and his cheeks are streams of tinsel. The only boy of 10 grandchildren, I perfected my surprised face when unwrapping Superman merchandise. My mum and dad give me the only present I asked for, winter sports Barbie. She comes drenched in a skin-tight glitter bodysuit, and her hair is a crimped blizzard. She looks how I imagine my dreams might look if I stuck their feet to a pink snowboard and asked them to lose weight. I call her Angela. Grandpa Terry watches from the back door as Angela glides across the frozen lake of my nan's bird bath. She sings Say You'll Be There as loudly as she can and skis through the air on her hands. Behind me, I feel Grandpa Terry's lips plie open and closed, like my older cousins do whenever I mention Santa, wanting to say something, thinking better of it. Avalanche stopping just short of the village. Grandpa Terry crushes something below his thigh, turns his back, leaves me an empty Stella can in the snow. 2. Learning to hold. Oh, there's a swear word in this. Okay, I'm going to change the swear word. There was once poo on the English block stairs. Ashton said he could tell it was human. Last week, there was some in the library. At school, we only have urinals. If you need to do what requires a cubicle to be done, you must go to the nurse and tell her. Ask politely for the sticky key. Prize a bar of soap and as much toilet paper as you estimate you will need from her glare, not the whole roll. Hands full of wretched treasure, you must limp through the crowds that laugh at you until you reach the legendary room of cubicles. Bolt the door behind you. Ignore the stench, the muddy murals on the stools, stains swamping the floor. Try not to question where they came from or inhale. Remember, boys cannot be trusted with themselves. Hover. Do not touch what is not yours. Flush. Do not leave a mess. Wash. Do not make a scene. Remember. It will take 1 trip, 2 at most, for your body to learn itself locked, to understand that its release is conditional, inconvenient, humiliating. 1 trip for you to understand that a boy's body is a flooding sewer, engineered to keep its outpour within, swell on its own soil, retain, until the day it can no longer bear to. 3. Deliverance, verbatim. I've known it from the day he was born. I was in the hospital and the midwife, she put him on my chest and I held him and I felt him, I felt him. And I said to myself, I says, Joanne, this baby is a gay baby. And I just thought, well, that's that. I love him, no different. That's that. 4. Notes from Mykonos Beach at 4 a.m. On the other side of town, where graffiti and stray dogs rule, a church sits atop a cliff, waiting for the purple ribbon horizon to pull up a new day, refusing to acknowledge the men gathered in the shadows under its nose. The gentle sea laps as if it doesn't know what they're doing either. Salty waves falling against rock face, bodies swallowed by darkness, silhouettes standing, knelt, writhing in worship. I wonder which of these midnight disciples have mortgages, or families back at their hotels. How many wives are lying in resort bedrooms, remembering the man who named each breast on their honeymoon, dreaming of a husband who can sleep at night. 6. When you hold something in for so long, sometimes the only way for it to come out is through your blood. 7. Learning to dance. We carried on with our day as planned, hungover in the heat, a beach with 90s music shimmying from the speakers as it had done the night before, when we danced in the club where men held hands in sanctity. We went to dinner that night, young and alive, and an American woman on the next table broke more of the story than the morning headline could bear to. 50 dead, gay nightclub, homophobic attack, maybe. The conversation then continued. As a wake or an afterlife might, the words moving on so easily, my throat swelled, eyes tidal. I could not hold back the break of this wave. I sat in my chair and I cried into my food, into the broth, the vessel, the earth. I cried, and I was very aware of how terribly un-British this was, and that I knew none of these people, and that this was not a story about me, and that such terrible things happen every day, and that selective grief is a boat capsized by the weight of its own hypocrisy. And yet, I couldn't not cry. I couldn't stop. I thought of my hometown, the 2 men set on fire outside of the bar where they had once held hands in sanctity. I feel a dance floor clutching her womb and falling. I feel them all, daughter and brother, lover who had shared my bed, who likely knew even more than I of what hatred looked like in its various Sunday suits, fist, lighter fluid, politician, estranged parent, who likely all knew the fight and were on a break from it because Saturday night had arrived. Her speakers shimmying, her flawless black sequin thighs grinding us up a new moon to worship. And they just wanted to dance. 8. When the stranger called me a faggot. This is the last poem in the sequence. When the stranger called me a faggot, I did not blink. Instead, this time, my mouth filled with Grimsby chip cone, wooden forks, an Ayleston leisure centre, rolling hills, walks to school, my first cigarette bought off Josh Baker for 50p, and the taste of being shortchanged, and the taste of being told it is fair, K-Swiss, the old horse, my overworked father, uncles asking about girlfriends at Christmas, and my cousin's knee, and my broken nose, and all of the kitchen roll unable to soak up a family's damage, funeral faces, graffiti on the backs of our livers, and Churchgate, Maryland chicken, free entry before 11, bottles tossed into dancing crowds, lips greeting glass with crimson splutterings of Alleluia, and 5th period French, savages born of boredom, fighting Ashley down the science block, crowd of camera phones blocking us in, no way out for one, and Nikesh, and Chris, and Sam, Mecca Bingo and the Washbrook, the boy who got snatched, chewing gum, sticking eyelashes together, football practice, and get it together, lads. His hand on my leg, shower room, and eyes forward, lads, his hand in my mouth, and or what, or what, or what. And my new friend said, we haven't heard you like that before. And I said, no, you haven't heard me. Thank you. Cool, okay. I'm going to do, I'm going to do this. Right, let's just do this. I'm going to read a poem from the collection that I never ever read. I've never read it at a live gig, actually. So this is the first, but we'll see how it goes. Iatrogenic, adjective, describing illness or disease caused by the medical treatment of another condition. The doctors couldn't explain it. Not part of the prognosis, nor a side effect of the drugs, they said. I think it came from the plastic. I watched this documentary about all the toxins in plastic, what they can do to the body. My dad spent hours on the oncology ward each week, new chemical blood coursing into him through those clear plastic tubes. The most aggressive dose. So strong, I think, it stripped something away from the lining of those plastic canals and washed it cast away into his body as well. That must be what caused the adenoid otitis, inflammation of the inner ear and throat tissue. a minor complaint compared to everything else. You wouldn't even diagnose it to look at him. His neck appeared normal, still swallowed and breathed as much as the tumours allowed. His ears still understood the radio and my mother's patience. It just meant there were some words he couldn't get out. It meant there were certain conversations he couldn't hear me start. A stubbornness to the membrane, common in men of his condition apparently, but by nature impossible to treat. Okay, cool. So I'm going to do one more poem from the book and then a couple of new poems, and then that'll be me done. This is really lovely. I do feel weird speaking to a laptop to an image of myself in a darkened room, but hopefully you're enjoying it. I have no way of knowing, but I'm going to tell myself that you are. So this has been really nice. I'm going to do a poem that I really enjoy performing, but obviously I usually perform it with people in the room. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I wrote this quite a long time ago when I was doing some poetry stuff abroad, and this thing happened while I was out there. And at the time I thought, I need to write this down so that I remember it, so that when I get home I can write it into a poem, because I thought it'd make a really good angsty poem. And but at the time I wrote it down, I was really drunk. I was in a blackout, and so I wrote it, but forgot that I'd written it. So I got back home, and a couple of weeks later I found this piece of paper in my suitcase, and I read it, and it was such a mess that I thought, instead of writing this into a well-crafted poem, I'm just going to leave it as it is, completely unedited. So that's what I'm going to share with you right now. We're going to go with it. If anyone's drunk, cheers to you. If you're having a drink, I actually had to stop drinking during the week at the beginning of the lockdown, because it was the only thing that I was looking forward to at the end of the day. So I'm only drinking at the weekends now, but if you're having a drink, this is only water. Cheers to you. Just imagine yourself in like the drunkest you've ever been on a night out. This is me at the end of that night out. Okay. I saw you. I can't believe that. Okay, great. I saw you through the chip fat haze. McDonald's, City. We can all relate to a disgustingly low meat content drunken meal after a few bavoirs. I also sound like a knob in this poem, just so we're clear. And I think when I wrote it, I thought I was being really seductive in a very serious way. So just bear that in mind. And there you were, sitting on a stool, swiveling, dreamy. I walked past you like I didn't even know you were there. Oh, open brackets. Anyone who likes Shania Twain will get that, close brackets. I don't know what that means. You made a joke. And I said, You said what? And I didn't say anything. I just laughed and a bit of chip came out my nose. Yes, I might be drunk, but you, my friend, are beautiful. But people won't believe me tomorrow, because they've all scuttled off like beetles to find dung and strobe lights. But I needed a break before to fill up for the treat, but I found the dung. You are the dung. A big, beautiful ball of dung. What is your name? You asked, and I told you. And I waited 10 seconds before asking you what yours was, because I'm disinterested and cool. And your name is Marcus. Marcus, my McDonald's man. You have a face like a star. Bright. Biblical. Your face led men to a Messiah that ended up being Jesus. Your face is religiously beautiful. So I just keep looking at the door and not making eye contact because I'm trying to be aloof. The woman asked me what I wanted to eat and I said, no. Take me home. But don't, because I'm celibate and independent and I'm pretty sure I know people in here. So I take your number, and your teeth are like clear light bulbs hanging from a wire at a summer barbecue, brightening the night. I mean, they're not proportionally like that. You don't have massive gap teeth, quite the opposite. Take me home, but don't, because I'm coy and aloof with my own oven in capital letters. But whatever, I don't care. I have your number and you are beautiful. And I say goodbye and I leave, and I text you something bland and non-committal like, hi, this is me. Hope you got home okay. And you reply with something equal, you too. It was great to meet you, and I'm drunk and I don't care. It was lovely, capital letters, to meet you, Marcus. Kiss, kiss, kiss. 2 days later, I lose my phone and you. There are over 1,000 Marcuses in this city. None of their profile pictures look anything like you at all. Where are you? Where are you? Where are your light bulbs? Where is your shine? Cool. Okay, wicked. I'm going to do a final 3 tiny poems. Last time I was at Greenbelt, actually, I performed a poem in Polari, Polari is a secret language variety that was used by gay men and queer people in Britain before the 1960s as a way of avoiding persecution. And I'd started writing some poems in Polari and translations in English and playing around with that. And so I've carried on doing that. And I've also been thinking about the ways in which actually gay men and queer people still have kind of secret languages or ways of communicating that are still necessary today, actually. So I took a few. I've taken a series of words or phrases from that are those things, specifically from like gay dating apps, and I've written a series of poem translations of them. So I'm going to read 3 of those. They're all a bit post 9 p.m. content, but these are the 3 that are the least controversial or explicit. So I'm going to read those, and then I'm going to hand back to Harry. But it's been lovely to be here. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you to everyone for tuning in and supporting this, and thanks to Harry for having me. It's always a pleasure to be at Greenbelt. Thanks, Greenbelt, for making this happen. It's such a nice idea. I know it's all a bit wild at the moment, and things like this I think are really important. So thank you for making this happen. Cool. Okay, I'm just going to bloody well do it. They're on my laptop. Okay, let me just... Okay, bear with. I'm also not the most technologically savvy person. Although I'm actually going to maybe start tomorrow, maybe 20 years behind the trend, a Facebook artist page. So please like it. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. Please like me. I need the validation at the moment. I've been living alone for 6 weeks. My new flatmate's just moved in. He's really lovely. But I think he's a bit overwhelmed because I'm literally like, let's spend time together. Okay, anyway, this is my book. Please buy that too. Cool. Okay. Number 1, NSA only, which means no strings attached. Medals off at the door. Middle names are not invited. We all need our ribbons cut now and then. Tuck them into your boots on the porch, but keep your socks on. Don't need your toes getting used to my floorboards. Don't need another face to cry for when they creak. Aubergine emoji. Sit. Pelt me with parsnips. Spanked by a celery stick. Marrow, may I? If love is a fruit in season all year round, is desire a vegetable patch in winter? Frostbitten farmer, hands in the hay, head harvesting images of last summer's wine-soaked stalks dripping from the corners of his mouth, a crop of purple fists detached from the body, grandma's bruised foot after the operation, sitting alone in its bed, a mind of its own, hungry. Bear. Hairy Mary, fuzzy friend. If you go down to the woods today, remember to take your harness. Track the paw prints to find the brute who looks like you do, or will do, in 20 years. We all come to resemble the hand that groomed us. Listen, pet. No matter how often you wax your back, abstain from trout, mani-pedi the paws, someone, somewhere, is teaching their children to play dead or stand tall and scream when they see you coming. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Thank you. Thanks, Harry. Are we back in the double screen?
Thank you so much to Toby. Oh, we've got a double screen so I can thank you in person. The wonderful Toby Campion. Please do like his Facebook artist page when it happens. Follow him on other things. There is a link in the description to this video to his Etsy page. So if you want to buy a book, that is the best place to do that. But otherwise, join me in a virtual / real applause for Toby as we say goodbye, and then I will take over the screen and finish with one more poem. Thank you so much, Toby. If you have enjoyed this, Greenbelt are doing stuff pretty much every day. It's incredible what they're doing, and you can find it all by going to greenbelt.org.uk/wild-at-home every Tuesday. I'm doing this every 2 weeks, and then on the other Tuesdays, Martin Joseph is doing a version of The Rising, so that is always going to be a treat. On Thursdays, the next sort of streaming thing Greenbelt are doing, there's a family show at 4 p.m, but in general you can either follow the hashtag or go online to their site and do it that way. Thank you so much for joining us. I checked the YouTube and the comments while Toby was performing, and there's 150 people watching, which is amazing. It could have been none and we would have been none the wiser, but among those people, Laurie Bolger said she'll hug us both and this is over. Erin Boland was giving love to Marcus, another Greenbelt favourite. But thank you everyone who's watched this. We will be back. Please do tune in 2 weeks. I've got the fantastic Vanessa Kasule joining, another Greenbelt favourite. Otherwise, there's the link in the description as well to a Ko-fi page if you want to donate. That will get split between me and Toby. But otherwise, do look after yourselves. One of the quotes I've used a lot was actually from the announcement Greenbelt gave when the festival wasn't happening, that we may not be in the same boat, but we're all in the same storm. So I hope wherever you are, however you're dealing with this, you're being kind to yourself. And when you've got the energy, you're being kind to each other. So I would just like to finish on this poem. It's called Impossible, and I mostly wrote it before all of this happened, but it feels like everything holds a different relevance in this time, and this poem is no different. So it was going to be about climate change, but our climate has changed. It's mainly about not giving up or trying to find hope, and how important that is, even when it feels difficult. So this is Impossible, and I'll just finish with that. But thank you so much for being here. Look after yourselves. Please do follow Toby after this. I'll be here in a couple of weeks. The poem goes like this. I'm finding it too easy to tell myself it's too hard, when facing the end that it's too late to even make a start. But if we take impossible to mean that we don't have a chance, we have lost sight of how unlikely it was we would get this far. The way the single fish outwits the shark by sticking with its school. The way a crescent moon outspins its dark to once again be full. Even winter, given long enough, begins to lose its cool. What was once exceptional now barely registers at all. Flamingos and giraffes look like they were drawn by a child. We can't begin to comprehend all of the ways this world is wild. None of them asked if they were possible before they came to be. None of them have ceased to exist by being told they're make-believe. The bug who finds it all too much and tries to shut off everything, to then recover and have summoned up the strength to stretch its wings. The snake so full of itself that it cannot help but shed its skin. Or how instead of death, the hedgehog went to bed and slept till spring. To think the earth exists at this specific distance from the sun, down to the angle of the axis on which everything is spun. The fact that trees happen to breathe that which we need inside our lungs. It would all seem impossible had it not already been done. We are impossible to everyone who's ever gone before. And everyone who's yet to come will push impossible some more. Just as indeed the do's we did outdo the don'ts we didn't. So it remains impossible until it isn't. The thought of rivers changing course before somebody gave a damn, or that a tide might turn from shore before a line's drawn in the sand. We cannot know how far our actions go, the impact they might have. Sometimes the only thing that we can do is to do all we can. Just as the night is at its darkest when it's introduced to day. Just as the dry is at its harshest in the breath before it rains. It's easy enough to believe in something when it's all okay. It is when times are at their hardest that it's hardest to have faith. Yet when the light begins to fade is when we need it the most. It's by surviving day to day that we see seasons evolve. If there was never any doubt, there'd be no reason for hope. It could be too late to do anything. It sure as hell is if we don't. And I am tired of the doom and gloom and self-fulfilling prophecies. I am trying to find room to bloom and self-fulfill the opposites. When it's an act of revolution to try stay remotely positive, there's nothing wishy-washy about opting to be optimists. Whether a brighter future is possible, we may not truly know, but the first step towards that future is imagining it so. And so, as indeed the do's we did outdo the don'ts we didn't. So everything's impossible until it isn't. And when it's over, and we're no more than old bones within the ground, still the soil knows to grow its seeds from what is broken down. What is lost is always lost until the moment it is found. It only ever goes one way, unless we turn things round. We are so constantly surrounded that it's easy to forget. This world was built upon impossible that hasn't stopped us yet. Just as indeed the do's we did outdo the don'ts we didn't. It only stays impossible until it isn't. Thank you so much. From me, look after yourselves, stay safe, stay hopeful, stay brilliant. I will see you in 2 weeks, if not sooner, via the internet. Go and buy Toby's book. Donate me some money if you want. Otherwise, look at all the other stuff Greenbelt are doing and be kind and be wild at home.